Hey guys, what's up? Pseudo Pluto here, and I'm doing a cool video today. I'm doing why I moved all the way from Boston to Seattle, Washington. It's all the way across the country, literally like one of like the furthest distances you can go. Um, one Northeast state that I like lived for such a long time, and one like Northwest state and city, cobblestone streets, flat city, right next to the ocean, brownstone, uh, all the universities and stuff in the city, all the history, the fall colors, versus Seattle, which is a very more like modern city, with grids and still has the ocean and everything, but it has like surrounded by mountains, mountain near in the background over here. Everything just seems like more organized, more modern, and more almost like brutalist versus like the organic growth of Boston. But yeah, so why did I do this? Let me just make sure my OBS is recording. It is. I'll figure out why that spike happened, but I think it was because of Google Maps. So why did I move from Boston to Seattle? Primarily, it was my job. So I accepted a new position after graduating, and I hated remote work. Actually, working remotely had me considering a career change, basically, during COVID and everything when I was doing internships, and I just knew I didn't want to do remote work. The company that I was working for was based in Seattle, and the job that I accepted was for the Seattle office. So I want to work in person, meet my coworkers, have like that like 10 to 6 office lifestyle. And yeah, I feel like both cities have like a very large young adult population. So um, for like events and socializing with coworkers and the perks that are offered to the people who work in the main campus, it made sense for my job to move over. Now, the second thing is money. So Washington has no income tax, the state of Washington. Meanwhile, Massachusetts has one of the higher income taxes. And basically, you're only taxed on what you purchase. So if you minimize the amount of money that you spend in Washington state, you can save money extremely quickly because you're not penalized for just earning. You're only penalized when you spend money. And also, my job provided a pretty hefty relocation bonus for moving across the country. So I like cash, I like money, so I took that. Uh, for other stuff, for like life adventure, I do like hiking, I do like outdoor stuff, and Seattle just has better nature close by. The same distance that um, it would take to get to the White Mountains from Boston, like 3 hours. You get to go to like Mount Rainier, one of like the prettiest mountains in the country, and like the North Cascades and the smaller mountains like nearby, just like for hiking and stuff. So much better. Like REI headquarters is in Seattle, and Columbia is like out in Portland. Uh, Nearby. Cool. On the other hand, too, I lived in Boston for 5 years, basically all my college and like post grad life, and I felt like moving on and exploring. Um, Boston's a pretty small city, and you can pretty much complete the city in like 2 3 years if you're taking your time and slow about it. And everything was like feeling stale, and I knew my options was like move over to Cambridgeville, like Cambridge and Somerville, or to move to another city. And I wanted to move to another city. And I wanted to practice my social skills again and practice making new friends. I was very comfy in my life in Boston, but I also noticed that because I like was settled and I had roots, um, I was mostly hanging out with my same friends over and over again and not making that much effort to make new friends. And for my goal of traveling and like working abroad and all this stuff, it would be good to have that practice and have that experience of making friends when you're new to a city. Because obviously, it's going to be harder when you're a completely different country where people don't speak the same language. Cool. So, what are the pros and cons after I moved here? Because it's been almost 6 months. So the pros: milder winters. Yeah, don't miss like de-icing cars and like worrying about snow and slush and everything. More of a tech scene. Two very big companies and a lot of startups nearby. Meanwhile, in Boston, it's mostly like regional offices of the bigger companies, and they're pretty small teams. Adventure close by, what I noted. Vancouver and Portland are pretty awesome cities. I visited them. Uh, they're pretty awesome cities, like with their own vibes. And for day trips, close to Seattle, like it's pretty nice, all things considered, as opposed to something like, let's say, Austin. There's a bigger car scene. I think that's because it doesn't snow as much, so there's not enough like rust to discourage people from getting like into cars and everything. So definitely when I was like working on my sister's car, and I'll make a video about that, it's definitely easier than it was compared to living in Boston. And yeah, there's like a huge like JDM like scene here and like actual like car meets and everything. So I'm very happy. Some of my friends ended up moving out of Boston anyways, so I have an excuse to visit Boston. I have an excuse to visit my friends and in other cities, and my friends have an excuse to visit me. So definitely made the right call in deciding to move on from my college hometown. Cheaper cost of living. I'm spending less money. I'm living alone in almost the same amount that I spent to live with like 3 roommates in Boston. And better food and coffee. This is like Seattle food and coffee blows Boston's food and coffee out of the park. Especially when it comes to like Asian food, just because there's such a large Asian population. And yeah, the cons of this, again, need to remake friend groups from scratch. I knew it was a con going into it, but nevertheless, it is a con. The tech scene can feel a bit boring in that it's all people like working at big companies. It's not as like dynamic as Silicon Valley. It's mostly like people looking for a stable job and looking just to spend their like 10 to 6. And a lot of like the meetups that you go to have like people working at like Boeing or Microsoft or Amazon. And it starts to get old. It starts to feel a little bit less like diverse than let's say like the Bay Area or Boston. Less vibey than Boston, as I showed you in the pictures. Like it's a more modern city, so the architecture, the people, and the events are all like less like, I don't know, like rich. It almost feels like, right? That's probably just like my own personal bias, just because I grew up like near Boston and went to school in Boston. Maybe I'm just more preferential to Boston's vibe. More isolated, less day trips. So yeah, Portland and Vancouver are nearby, but that's like the only like major cities that are nearby. In Boston, you have like Montreal, Burlington, Portland, Maine. In New York City, of course, you have Philadelphia, so there's a lot more cities to visit and a lot more fun like road trips to do to places. But I will say, as part of like the nature thing, there are, I would say like a bit more like scenic drives compared to Boston. Gray is gray, London type cold rather than snow. Yeah, I had to like relearn how to dress because I wasn't used to having to dress for like the wet kind of cold where the temperature is like, let's say, warmer, but because they're so humid and like damp, like chills you like to your fingers rather than like your bones. But yeah, overall, how do I feel? I'm happy that I made the leap, but I'm unsure if I want to stay long term. I think when I change my job, I'll heavily consider trying out a new city or going abroad. I don't think I'm gonna like put down roots or settle in Seattle for the long term. And yeah, I will upload this list to my video notes. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. And look out for some videos coming up here soon. I have a lot coming up. So yeah. See you guys later. So it'll put it out. Bye.